Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. Today I'm very happy to bring you guys the TvP Double Gas build. And we had already done the TvP Mine Drop review, which opens Reaper Fast Expand, Safety Cyclone, 2 mines for a drop. And the thing with that build is it is not good against Blink Stalker all-in pressure, right? Pressure all-in. A 4+ gate blink all in, right? And what we're seeing on the ladder is more often than not, opponents are opening Twilight first into blink or Twilight into DTs, right? So what we did is we kind of, it took a while, but we realized that A, Double Gas is the opener that we want, and then B, we want an opener that is going to be safe against Twilight first out of our opponent, right? So those are kind of the parameters we were working with. So what we're doing is we kind of adapted our TVT build a little bit, and we're opening 16, 16, 17 Double Gas with an 18 Scout instead of a 17 Scout, and that's because if Protoss does a Pylon Scout, the 17 Scout is just kind of wonky, right? We want to make sure that we're hitting our gas timings correctly, so we've adjusted that to an 18 Scout, right? So our open is going to be 2 Reaper, 1 Cyclone. And then for Starport, it's going to be straight to Raven. And after the Cyclone, we're going to go Tech Lab into 3 tanks. And this open is going to be good against Twilight or Stargate, and then against, if we see his Robo first, we can audible into a Mine Drop. But we're looking for a build that is going to be safe in ladder play against everything that we're seeing out of the opponent. So let's pause here, and we can see what's going on. Is in this game, opponent did something weird, and we're not going to talk too much about what opponent did because we just like the way our build played out in this one. And hopefully we get more examples, and hopefully we can hold a blink all in, and we'll show that if we get a hold. But basically what opponent did here is he went Pylon, Nexus first for some reason, with a, God, what the hell, a Forge and a Gateway, right? And he might have been trying to do like a weird cannon rush with weird timing. But when he got to my ramp, right, I was closing the wall off. And that's the first thing that I like about the Double Gas build is because we're not trying to low ground expand and we're walling the high ground off quickly, I like that the Double Gas build has some built-in protection to cannon rush by default, right? That's the first thing that I like. The second thing that's good about this is with 2 Reapers, we're going to be able to force through a Scout, right? We're going to be able to jump the Reaper wall, and we're going to be able to get at least one of the Reapers in to scout the tech, very similar to how we do a 2 Reaper scout in TVT. We can send the 2 Reapers out when the Cyclone pops out. The other thing I like is the Cyclone, just like in the other build, the Mine Drop build, the Cyclone can keep us safe against a Stargate opener by just parking the Cyclone in the main to protect our SCVs, right? So already there's a lot of good things going on. We've got a bunker in the front. Our tank is positioned roughly so that you want to understand the range differences between the units. So a Stalker has 6 range, and a tank has 13, and Marines in a bunker also have 6. So you want to put the tank in a position where if there's a Stalker here shooting the bunker is shooting back, and the tank is as far back as possible while also getting a shot off. And this tank position is important because this is going to be key to the Blink Stalker defense. And basically what we want to do is we want to keep our buildings, especially our tech labs, away from the jump-in spot. And we want to have tank, 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 right? We want to have 3 tanks in a line where they're protecting our workers and our production, right? So let's see how we do that. After the Raven, we switch, put a reactor on there, and this will be the racks that's getting stim. So tank, this tank is covering that tank is covering that tank. Not perfectly, but good enough. Marines in a bunker, wall in front. double engineering bay because we're not pro. We're just going to do it our own way, which is, you know, it's going to be slightly off meta, but it's going to have the concepts that we need. And then after the 3 tanks, we switch to reactor, and we're just going to go into our 4M now. So basically the open, and this is a complicated build, granted, right? And the reason I like this replay is the fight against his army. There's a lot of micromanagement you need to do with the overall army composition, right? But we're playing 2 base. We cut at 46 workers, so we have perfect saturation, right? We've got 2 base saturation, right? 16, 16. Each gas has 3, and we've got 2 workers producing depots, right? So that's a 46 worker setup. We're making 1-1. We're making stim and shields. We'll queue up concussive shell as well. And then we want to be making 2 marauders, 2 marines, 2 medevacs, and 2 mines. And we're going to leave at 7 minutes, 30 seconds. So basically a pretty standard timing. And to do this correctly, we should also be dropping a 3rd base on location as we're pushing out. We don't do that this game because we're not doing everything perfectly, but that's okay, right? So our tanks are essentially covering each other. Our tanks are covering the production. Our tanks are covering the mineral lines. We've got a bunker in the front. If you want to be super paranoid safe, you can go double bunker in the front. And we're just going to keep on spamming out Marine, Marauder, Mine, and Medevac for 4M. Okay, so we're not doing anything other than spamming units. We had a Reaper at the Watchtower. So at 7:30, we open the ramp, empty the bunker, unsiege the tanks. Our upgrades are about to finish. Okay, and we're fully upgraded with 1-1 bio, right? So right now it is +1 blink. He is going up to +2 ground weapons, right? So it's +1 blink versus +1/+1 bio. He does not have charge lots, which is kind of key. So we're going up against an army that is basically Blinkstalker, Immortal, Sentry, and this is not a typical army composition, but what we do with our army is what's important here, right? So we're looking to siege up to 3 tanks. We anti-armor missile with the Raven. We want to get the mines down, and then we want to make sure that what we're doing is pressuring into the base, right? So if we have a siege position, we need to be sieging up against juicy targets. And then we're just going to keep on macroing the 4M. So let's see what we're producing. Right? And we're just making 4M. So we're making 4M. At some point, we dropped the armory as when +1/+1 was halfway done. We dropped the armory and hotkeyed it. And we had the presence of mind to start up +2/+2. And then the armory upgrade is always a difficult decision, whether you want to go armor, vehicle weapons, or ship weapons. It's a tough choice, but basically, it's not the best example out of what opponent was doing. But if we look at different phases of the game, right? Again, this is MMR specific. So this is a 3.3K Protoss, by the way, right? So he's doing this. It's the equivalent of like CC first with the Forge first. And he might have, usually what the Protoss is trying to do is they want to drop a pylon right where you want to put your depot, and that's how they initiate a cannon rush. So this guy might have given himself the option for a cannon rush, and then when I saw this, when I came over here, I saw what looked like, okay, to me it looked like Nexus first, and I saw a cannon, so I knew he had Forge, right? So at that point I just turned around with the SCV because there was nothing else to see really. And then my Reaper gets killed by the cannon up here on the Reaper wall, right? So whatever. But look, he actually does go Twilight first, right? So he does go Twilight into Blink. He just didn't do it straight away. And then he continues to basically go up to a 4-gate setup. So now he's making 2 gates and a Robo, and he's already got 2 gates and he's making Blink. So that's literally a 4-gate setup, right? And I guess his observer sees my setup, and he decides probably that he can't pressure, would be my guess, right? So he goes observer. And his observer takes a peek, and he probably saw these two tanks and then decided to not go ahead with the blink pressure because he's already got his warp prism, he's already got 8 stalkers, and at my MMR, and he's even making +1 attack, right? So this dude is like ready to get at it. He's doing something very similar to me in a sense, in that I'm making 4M, and I'm making upgraded 4M, and he's making upgraded Blink Stalker. And based on my defensive SimCity setup, he probably made the decision that he couldn't actually push into this. So the next thing he does is he tries to expand, and then because he didn't go up to Robo Bay, so he's almost got no choice with the Robo to make. He basically just has to make a mortal. And I thought he made some disruptor, but I must have been misseeing something here because he doesn't get Robo Bay at any point. So he just makes Immortal, he makes Centuries, and then what he should have done is started Charge. I don't know why I didn't start Charge. Probably, I guess his tech choice is High Templar. Yeah, so I just confused the Immortal skin with maybe I thought that was a disruptor, but oops, didn't mean to do that. Yeah, so it's a lots of micro, like in the beginning of the fight over here. So at the beginning of the fight, we throw out the anti-armor missile. It's the best use of the Raven that we have, right? It kind of mitigates the impact of those Guardian shields, if you think about it, right? Anti-armor missile versus Guardian shield. So that restores parity. And then he wasted his battery overcharge. But you can see it's complicated, right? Because I have to burrow the mines, I have to siege unsiege the tanks, I have to use the Raven spells, and I have to use Stim Pack. So this isn't like a beginner-friendly composition, right? The only beginner-friendly composition in the game is Biotank, like Marine Marauder Medevac Tank. If you're a noob, that's what you should be playing, is Marine Marauder Medevac Tank with Vikings if you need them. That's kind of like the catch-all composition that should get you through Gold League. But once you get into Platinum, you need to start doing one build per matchup. And then once you get into Diamond, you need to continue the lessons of Platinum, have specific builds per matchup, and then be able to use spellcasters effectively. I think that's kind of the transition into Diamond, especially in TvT. You've got to be able to use Ravens if you're going to get through Diamond. You got to be able to use Interference Matrix, and you got to know that you need Ravens against DTs. And in TvP, you can use Ravens for harassment with auto turrets, or you can do what I did, which is throw out the anti-armor missile at the beginning of the fight and then just kind of forget about the Raven. Because for me, if we switch into Ghosts later, we absolutely do not want an army that's got both Ravens and Ghosts. That's way too difficult to control. That's way too much tabbing through our army's command cards, right? So what we want to be able to do is Raven spell, tab once, stim, and then if we have Marauders, it's double tab to siege the tanks. So yeah, or like shift tab at the start, like double shift tab to get to the mines. So the tank siege unsiege, the mine burrow unburrow, the spell casting, and the stim. I know it's a lot, but we got to be able to manage it. And the only caveat we're going to make is that we're not going to play Ravens and Ghosts at the same time. If I ever get into a position where I've got both Ravens and Ghosts, I just kill my Raven because I don't want to F2 and have the Ravens command come up. I'd rather just start with the Ghost command up so that I can throw out EMPs as necessary. But the key thing here is the build, right? So 16, 16, 17 double gas, 18 scout, 2 Reapers and a Cyclone into tank Raven, 3 tanks for anti-blink setup. The Raven is obviously there for DTs, also to kill observers, right? We can shark around for observers. And then we go into 4M. We do our attack at 7 minutes 30 seconds with fully upgraded bio. And then after that attack, we should have already dropped our third, and we'll choose our transition, right? It's probably always reasonable to go up to +2, +2. And then if we see that they've made a, what is this thing called? The Templar Archives. If they've made the Templar Archives for High Templar, we have to have ghosts. We cannot have direct engagements with their army if they have High Templars. So we have to have ghosts to try and EMP the High Templars to strip their energy away to reduce the amount of storms that they can throw at us, right? And we've got a micro away from the storms, so that's challenging. If they go Robo into Robo Bay, they are getting either Colossus or Disruptor. If they're playing Colossus, we can play Vikings. And if they're playing Disruptor, we can play Liberator, right? So those are the tech choices that we have to make. And then what we should do is go back to some games that I had prior where opponent went into Stargate heavy transitions in mid-game. And if they go Stargate, like multiple Stargates with Void Rays into Tempest or Carriers, Mothership, whatever. Like basically if they play Stargate into Fleet Beacon, right? Meaning that they're definitely going to be upgrading their Stargates. They have to have Fleet Beacon to go to +2, +2 air. They have to have Fleet Beacon for Tempest Carriers and Mothership. So if they're going Fleet Beacon, we know that they're committed to air. And if they do that, we're just going to play straight up Marine tank. Marines, tanks, medevacs, Vikings. That's all we need. We can go up to 3 base, and we can basically just continue to push them 3 base all in with like 66 SCVs, right? But the way we're trying to play the standard open is 2 base, 46 SCVs, prep for our big fully juiced bio attack, right? So the fully juiced bio attack, +1/+1, stim, shields, shells, right? 3 tanks, 1 Raven, medevacs. The Cyclone is mixed in there as well. Bunch of mines, 4M, right? So it's pretty complicated, but we are now confident in TvP, which we were not before. Like the TvP mine drop build only is good against specifically Robo first, and in the current meta, for whatever reason, the meta has shifted away from Robo first. So in prior seasons, when I first got to 3,300K, which I'm almost back at now, when I first got to 3.3K, it was on the strength of my TvP win rate because I was having a ton of success with mine drop because the meta back then was Robo first. The meta has shifted away from Robo first, and the meta is now Twilight first. So we need a build that we can run every time, right? Go start off with this build that is trending towards Twilight first, blink all in defense, and can also deal with DTs, but then can transition to handle whatever they're throwing at us, right? And if we see Robo first, we can always audible into mine drop. We don't necessarily need to build the 3 tanks. We can build that first tank and then build like a mine or whatever, right? Like we can go Raven medevac, and then we can go tank mine if we really want to. But maybe we don't necessarily need to do that. This might just be straight up better against Colossus. And an option that we can do is actually get 2 Ravens and research Interference Matrix. And then we're really like a TVT build at that point, right? The only difference there is we made 1 Cyclone instead of 2, but then we're basically playing it out kind of the same way with the 3-1-1 transition into 4M. So it's a ton of jargon. I'm going to make a slide that supports this. I'm going to put the slideware into the spreadsheet and then tailor the spreadsheet section that supports that slide to show the upgrade pattern, right? So it's always good to have that visual scorecard that'll help kind of explain this a little bit, but that's why the video is here, so you can rewatch it and replay it. But the key takeaway here is I had a sense that Reaper Fast Expand was not good against Twilight first, right? And the reason is we need the factory fast. We need the factory fast. We need that first cyclone fast. That first cyclone is going to help us if they do like a 2-gate opener with a proxy gate. So that's another way. The ways Protoss can be really annoying at the beginning of the game is with Cannon Rush or with 2-gate pressure. But if it's 2-gate pressure at home, it's not a big deal. But if it's 2-gate pressure with 1-gate proxied, and that's a lot harder to scout too. That can be really annoying, but the fast cyclone will help us with that. And then other than that, it's basically back to our scouting, right? If we send the 2 Reapers in and the 2 Reapers don't see anything, we got to look around. We got to find the proxy. If it's proxy Stargate into Tempest, we can beat that just by going 3 reactors on a 1-1-1. So Barracks, Factory, Starport, all with reactors, make Marine Cyclone Viking, right? We have a replay where we handled Proxy Tempest no problem on this map, where opponent put the Stargates over here, took this base as their second, and then took the frickin' gold, and they had 3 base, 1 gold, 2 starports over here making Tempests, trying to abuse this airspace. And all I did to counter that was go 1-1-1, all reactors, put some turrets here and a bunker here, and just got critical mass of Vikings and was able to kill these 2 bases with Marine Cyclone Viking. And then from there, it was just an easy transition into 4M to basically, they tried to like expand out to 3 bases up at the top of the map. But my 4M army, just like here, was much stronger than what they had, right? So this is why Protoss complains, by the way. Protoss complains because unless they can get the gateway pressure against you before you're ready, so like at the very beginning of the game with proxy gates, or if they can do the 4-gate blink pressure to contest your transition into 4M and snipe your upgrades, snipe your stims, snipe your shields, right? Once we get into upgraded bio, they have to have splash damage. So that's why these fights were so one-sided. Like if I look at the units lost, the efficiency is 10k lost versus 3k lost, right? They have to have splash damage to beat upgraded bio. That because we have splash damage, we have mines and we have tanks. That's splash, right? And we had the interference we had the anti-armor missile, which counteracted Guardian Shield, right? So they have to have Colossus, they have to have Disruptor, or they have to have Storm or Archons, where Archon's auto attack is splash damage, right? So those are the 4 kinds of splash for Protoss. So if they're playing ground army into mid game, they got to have splash, and they know it, right? And the other thing that they can do is rush Sky Toss. So like turtle to carriers is the other thing that they can do that's super annoying. And if they have a Death Ball army that's got splash, usually they have like two or 3 types of splash by the time they're getting to late game. They'll just beat your ass by going Death Ball with splash into a carrier transition. And that's personally what I'm the most afraid of. And I want to get to a point where we have, because right now we don't have late game concepts for TvP, right? Right now what we have is essentially a mid-game 2-base all-in, which is that's what this was. This was a mid-game 2-base all-in, very similar to how we had talked about the TVT 2-base all-in. This is the same concept. Instead of interference matrix, we're getting concussive shell, right? But it's the same thing. +1/+1 bio with medevacs and tanks. We've got mines sprinkled in there, and we've got the 1 Raven, but that 1 Raven is just a hedge against DTs and also helps us slow down Blinkstalker pressure by potentially sniping the observers, making it harder for them to jump into our base, right? So right now we've got the 2-base all-in concept that we're looking for that's good in the current TvP meta, and we're going to continue to play this until we get into a late game scenario where what we're going to need to close out a late game scenario is going to be starport support in the form of Vikings and ranged liberators, and specifically ghosts for EMP to counter high Templars, right? And if they get into air, if they get into carriers, we know what we're going to need for that is Marines, Vikings, probably Widow Mines, maybe Thors, which are good against capital ships. We'll figure that out when we get into these scenarios, if we can get into a TvP split map and actually win, right? So that's the key thing, is our TvT and our TvZ builds have good concepts for early game, mid game, and late game. And then right now, this particular TvP build has good concepts for the open, which is early game, and the mid game, right? And we need to figure out what our late game transition is. We kind of know, and it's basically going to be based off of what tech choice that they're going with, but let's try to deal with it more organically, rather than just theory craft through everything. We do need to see the results, right? So anyway, hope this helped. I know a lot of people are struggling in TvP. Double gas. I'm going to put the slide together, and I hope it helps you guys. Also, of course, generally, my videos get under 100 views, like 50 to 100 views. This is 100% for me. I listen to these a lot. It helps me a lot. I like to listen to the theory craft and replay it in my head a lot. So if you are an actual person listening to this, just know that I appreciate you listening to my ramblings very much. Thank you.